Hey there, this is K4A, Knowledge for All educational videos and tutorials. In this video today we are going to learn how to create grid in GameMaker, and we have learned maybe one way to do it in one of the previous videos where we have learned how to draw lines. Then we also learned how to change color, how to draw rectangle and ellipse, but the problem with that approach was that, and we are going to show that again, that approach was slow and tedious and repetitive, so you would have to copy paste lots of code. So in this example we have created two lines with two blocks of code. And when you have one or two lines like that, it's not a problem, couple of lines. But when you need lots of lines, lots of data, then it would be very hard to create like maybe 50 or 100 blocks for 100 lines. Horizontal is same for vertical lines and so on, so it would become really messy and hard to control and manage very fast. So we're going to use for loop for that today and make it in a relatively easy way. One way, there are also other ways, but we're going to show how to do it in the way using two for loops, one for horizontal and one for vertical lines. And also that can be simplified, but we will see that in some of the other videos maybe in future. Anyway, so because I am a little bit lazy, I'm going to copy this guy here, obj draw line color, left click to select it, right click to pick duplicate, and then draw line color. I will rename that into draw grid, obj draw grid. Double click to open it, and because I have used obj draw line color as a starting point and duplicated it, I have the same code as that object, so I will have to delete something and add something else. Let me first drag and drop this from my asset browser to my scene, and let me hide obj draw line and obj draw line color from my game screen, so all we have now on our screen is obj draw grid. So this is what we have so far. That's a start. Okay, so I will leave this block set draw color because I love the color which I currently have, green, and maybe I can use these draw lines later, but I will disable them for the start. Left click to select them and then disable them. And let me just show you on my Autodesk sketchbook drawing what I'm going to do. So I'm going to pick the green color also to make it more clear. Okay, so we want to create a grid of horizontal and vertical lines like this. So I want to create a couple of those, so I will I will just duplicate the layer and then move it a little bit down below, and 2 or 3 let merge with below, duplicate again, move, just to have, for example, 4 of those. That would be enough. Okay. So I want to create horizontal lines like this to cover whole of my game screen. Currently, when you check out the screen on your in your GameMaker, you can see that there is some kind of grid already, but this white grid with squares, that is only toggle grid, as you can see here in your top right corner, and you can turn it on or off and change the grid size, but that grid is only when you work in GameMaker. When you press play, that grid disappears, so don't be confused with that. But I want to have this kind of effect as in my GameMaker, only in my game, and a little bit bigger squares. So to do that, I need to create lines. We have seen that how to do that in previous videos with this draw line, but because my screen is 600 pixels in height, it would I would need so much of those code blocks. I would have to copy them like 10 or 15 times or so on. So for example, if I want to make a line, horizontal line on every 50 pixels, I would need how many of those lines? My height is 600, so I would divide 600 with 50 pixels. That means I would need 12 lines, horizontal lines like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would need 12 of those to cover whole of my screen in height, and that would be only horizontal lines. Same goes for vertical. So I would need to copy paste this block at least 12 times or more. It depends how big your screen is. In my case, it's 800 in width and 600 in height. So I would have to copy paste 12 times this draw line, which is crazy. I would have 12 lines for my horizontal, 12 draw line blocks for my horizontal lines, and for my vertical I think more, like 15 or so. 16. Yeah, so it would be like 16 plus 12, 28, and those two draw color, set draw color. So I would need to have and to create 30 blocks of code. So imagine you have like 30 blocks of code here, and you scroll down, up and down, and you go crazy. So to simplify that, and that is the reason why we are making all of this, to simplify that, to make it easier, you create some kind of rule. You want to create some kind of rule, and it's mostly some kind of mathematical and logical rule, like some kind of function. You can call it rule, law, procedure, or whatever, where you create something under some kind of specific rule. In my case, for example, I want to create these horizontal lines on every 50 pixels. So what do I want to do? I want to say somehow to GameMaker that this first line should be on 50, second would be 50 times 2, that is 100, right? The third one would be 50 times 3, 150, 200, and so on, all the way with the last one ending with 600 pixels. So here the distance is 50 pixels between this 0 and the first line. Between first line is and second, it's also 50, and so on. So between lines I have 50 pixels with distance, and I want to use that. Why? Because I can see that this is repeating 50, 50, 50, 50. So when you have some kind of data, information, number, and something like that, you want to use that as some kind of rule. You see the repetition and you say, okay, so if this is repeating, I need to pull it out and use that as some kind of rule. In my case, I will define the position, and this is, don't forget, this is y coordinate axis, and this vertical, and this horizontal is x. And because I point these green lines first of those, I point them up and down. Oops, sorry, this one. I point them up and down on my y axis. So I want to define that first. And as I said, I will use the number 50 because that is the distance between my lines, and I will try to represent everything with that number. So how would you say that number 0 is represented by 50? Can I say 0 is 0 times 50? 0 multiplied by 50 is still 0, so that's cool. This guy here, 50, how can I get that one? Oops, I was drawing on this, never mind. This guy, 50, how can I get that number by 50? Simple, I can just say 1 times 50 is equal 50. This guy, 100, how can I represent it by 50? I can say 2 times 50. This guy, 3, and so on. So I hope you see the pattern. I hope you see that the numbers are growing up here. Here is 0, here is 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So numbers are starting to rise from 0 to all the way to the 600. It will be, I think, 12 times, yeah, 12 times 50 is 600. So we have defined, and this is math and this is logic, but you will see that once you learn some of those tips and tricks, if you want to call them like that, later you will use this all the time, and it's just trying to more like recognizing it, then you're not going to develop it every time from the scratch. It's just like some kind of skill or technique which you're going to use, and from game to game or from problem to problem, just change these numbers and so on. So we have two things here. We have number 50, which is repeating, and we have numbers rising from 0 to 12. Why to up to 12? Because we have 12 lines, 12 of those horizontal lines which will cover our whole screen. So let's see that in action, and it will make more sense, I hope. Okay, so I'm going to use for loop, so I need to find that one here in my GameMaker drag and drop blocks. Loops, here it is, loop, repeat, while, for. Click and drag it here, and you can see, I think we have learned that some time ago, but let's go again. You have three fields. The first one is how to initialize, that is the starting point, the point where you start from. In our case, we are also starting from what? From 0 here. So I think we will leave that as it is. Sometimes you will, for example, if you don't want to, and one more thing, 0 meaning our first green line will be here on top of the 0, so maybe it won't be so easy to see on the screen, but we will see that when we render the screen. So that is the first thing. Sometimes, in some cases, you're not going to start with 0. So for example, if I wanted to go with something like go with the third line, then 6th, then 9th, and so on. So I would start with number 3 instead of 0 and so on. So it's all about what kind of problem do you solve and what do you need for your game. Condition is the limit. So in our case, we will have this can be also confusing for some of you. Probably you would put 12 of those and that would be okay, but the problem here is that we start with a 0. So we go with 0, 1, 2, up to what? In this case 11, because we're checking is it less than 12, and it will work as long as the I variable is less than 12, and that is 11. 11 is less than 12 and it will work only to 11. But it's okay for us because when you start with the 0, this is the first element. The problem is that only the computers are starting with 0. So the first element is 0, the second is 1, and so on. So you just have to worry about that if you need something very precise and get confusing results. Just check that from time to time. I also forget it or make errors and so on. So we'll start with 12. Maybe also we will push it to 13 because we are going to need this last line maybe if you want to see that line on the screen. And I think that's it for the for loop in terms of a variable. So we have defined the variable I, which starts with 0, goes up to 11 and goes one by one. But what we can see here, it says it's empty. The loop is empty. We have to put something in loop to run. We're going to put this draw line. And again, don't put it below with this blue line below, but put it more to the right so the blue line is on the right. You're like putting it in for loop. I don't like this visual style. I'll prefer Scratch, but yeah, just take care of it. So select draw line, enable it if it's disabled as in my case. And what we are going to do now, let me go to the screen again. My green line, how long it is? It goes from the 0 here. It goes from the 0, this is 0. And the width is here, this is the end of the screen. How long is that? In my case, the width is the width of the screen, and I can read it here when I click on inspector and room. I can read the width of my room, it's 800. So in my case, this is 800. I want my lines to be 800 pixels wide. So I will use X0 because it starts from the left start of the screen, which is 0, and goes to X2, which is 800, which is the end of the screen. That's cool. That will work. The problem is here with Y coordinates. We don't know how to define those yet. So let's do that now. Y is what? Y is, we said that a couple of times, Y is this. Oops, Y is this vertical axis, and this one going up and down, up and down. And how much is distance? We already defined that. How much do we want our green lines to be distanced on this Y? We want to have 50 pixels between them. So let's just type 50 for a start. We already have that. So the first line will start with X0. It will go to X800. That means all the way and it will start on y50, but we don't want to start with y50. Why? We said that before. We want to start with 0 here. So, and we already defined that as some kind of rule, some kind of procedure. To turn 50 into 0, all I have to do is type here. You need to find the star on your keyboard and say 50 multiplied by 0, and this will work. But the problem is this loop will always count this as 0. I don't want to do that. I want that once. I want the first time to be 0, the second to be 50, the third to be 100. So how to change it? And that's where this variable comes in handy. This y variable, which we defined in loop I variable I, we type that here in draw line. So we're using the variable from for loop and putting it in draw line, which is like some kind of, I don't know if we have used that before. So 50 times it's I variable. I'm not sure why I'm saying y. Yeah, y, because I'm putting that in y field. So in y field you type 50 times I, or 50 star I, and that way, because I is changeable, it's variable which will go from 0 to 12, it will be used here. It will be used here in second step. It will be used here in third step, fourth, all the way to 12. And because I is the variable which is in loop and which is changing, those lines will change too. So I want to start with 0 on my height for the first point and same for the last, and I think this will work now. You type 50 times I in y, and you type 50 times I in y2. So if you're not sure, just pause the video here and copy paste the okay, so we have the for loop for horizontal lines. I think this will work, and I hope it will work. Yeah, this looks great. So instead of creating 12 of those draw lines, blocks, like for example, I think we have it here, yeah, or even here is better. Yeah, imagine having like 12 of those blocks, and you have to type 0, 50, 100, 50, 150, 12, 200, and so on. Not only that it would be slow and painful, but you could probably and would probably made some kind of mistake by doing it. So this is not only faster and should be easier to manage and control, but it's also less prone to error. So we have horizontal lines. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to I need another loop for vertical lines. So click and drag it from the right to the left, click this draw line, and or create new if you don't have one, and let's now make our vertical lines. For my vertical lines it will be a little bit different. Why a little bit? Because my height is my width is 800. So from this line here to this line here, the width, how wide your screen is. In my case it's 800, so if I want to create something like this and a couple of times more, if I want to create vertical lines, I will yeah, let me first just merge with below, hide this one, and hide. Okay, so if I want to create vertical lines like this on every 50 pixels, because the width of my screen is no, I want to use pencil, and okay, so because the width is of the complete the width of complete stage is 800 pixels, and I want to have a line on every 50 pixels, I would have to divide 800 with 50, and it should be, I think, 16 if my math is good. Okay, so this would be the first line, this would be the second, third, fourth, up to 16 would be somewhere like this, and to be more precise, we start with the 0, so 0 would be here. So 50 pixels between them, same like we did in previous. This would be 50 pixels here, this would be 100, this would be 150, 200, all the way up to 800. Same, we use the number 50, we use the variable I, which will be 0, which will be 1, which will be 2, which will be 3, which will be 4, all in the loop. And that's it. The difference is that we are moving on which axis? On X. So I'm going to type this rule, which I have defined in the X field for my draw line. And that's it. Let's do that in GameMaker. So I go from 0, that's true. I go to 10, that's not true. I go to 16, and 16 is less than 17, so I will count the rule I is less than 17. If I put 16, I would go up to 15, because this rule says go as long as I is less than what. So that's why we put 17. But again, you can see that, I will show you at the end. You can see that on the screen, and check it on the screen if you're not sure. And I increment in 1 because that's how I defined my rule. So I is 0, I goes until condition is less than 17, and I will go in +1 increments. So every time the loop is going on, it will draw something on the screen, and it will draw what? It will draw, we said, on X 50 times I, and because I'm lazy, I will copy paste it from this. X is 50 times I, X2 is also 50 times I start with 0 here, 0 for my y, and I end here at what? What is this? This is the height. This should be 600, I think. So I start from the top, which is 0, and I go all the way to the bottom, which is 600 in my case, because my stage is 600 in height. For your, just check it out. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay, half an hour. That was really long. Let's test this finally. And we have how many? For loop, draw line, for loop, draw line. Set draw color, that is not necessary. We can delete this, but I like the green color better. And we have a grid on our game. So this is our game. Don't forget, this is what renders on our screen. Which is again something which you maybe like or don't like, need or don't need for your game. I use this from time to time when I create some kind of games with tiles or objects which should be positioned precisely, so I can check this way fast if they are in the grid, on the position completely on the grid. So for example, you can use it also for some kind of chessboard pattern or some kind of turn-based games where you need some kind of grid and something like that. One more thing, and we will end this immediately. What I wanted to show you here, check out now the grid if I delete this condition. So instead of 17 I use maybe just 5, just to see what will happen, and count how many lines we have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That goes 5 because I start with the 0. So the line completely on the left is 0, then it goes 1, then it goes 2, then it goes 3, 4. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is less than 5, and that is where you stop. When you reach the 5, stop. We said that in our rule, in our for loop. Go until you reach the 5. When you reach the 5, stop. So that's why I used 17 here, and I wanted to go all the way to 16 and stop on 17. That's it for this video. Sorry if this was too long, but again, I hope this helped at least for some of you, and to see how you can use some of those techniques and drag and drop blocks, which we have learned not only in previous videos with draw line, draw color and so on, but also with these 4 loops. We have learned them a long time ago, but you can see them here now in real world action, and how it's not only it's fast, but it's only very it's like you have some kind of power tool which is very powerful, and you define all the rules here and here in the loop, but also how loop works. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye for now.